Welcome back to episode 23 of the We Are Everywhere podcast. We had to take a little break last week. I guess it's been 2 weeks since we recorded. Got COVID for the second time. So shout out to Pfizer for giving me a vaccine that works. I'm not going down that road, but we're good. We're back and got a really cool episode coming up. Someone I've never met, which you've heard me say before, these are my favorite because I like meeting new people. Without further ado, I'm going to let him introduce himself. This is Tim Bangert. What's up, Tim?
Hey, Clay, how are you today?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. So before we get into anything Phish,
Yep.
who is Tim? Where are you from? What's your Netflix password? What's your social security number?
Right.
All of it.
Yeah. We'll get those. Those will be in the show notes later on. I'll make sure to drop those in. Yeah, my name is Tim Bangert. I live in a far-flung suburb of Chicago, about halfway from Chicago to Rockford, called Gilbert's.
Cool.
And
Gilbert.
yeah, Gilbert's. It's got an S on the end. It's not quite like
S.
the one in Arizona. Yeah,
Gotcha.
Multiple Gilberts.
Okay.
So I live about 50 miles straight south of Alpine Valley, which I'm sure we'll get into there. So it makes it, it's kind of a home court around here.
Absolutely.
And live here. I've got 2 daughters, got a lovely wife, and they've kind of fled the building at the moment, but so all good. And I've really been looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, me too. So we reached out, or we connected on Twitter.
Yeah, I reached out to you.
Yeah, you reached out to me, which I love because it's one of those things to where, like you start up a project like this and, there's like the fears and the insecurities of like, oh my God, like, is this even going to be a thing? Are people going to like it? And it always feels good whenever people do like reach out to me instead of me reaching out to them, which it's like, so thank you for doing that.
Oh, yeah, I love listening. I love listening to people just have conversations about their experiences and listening to how, other people. I think the first one I listened to was with Anderson.
Oh yeah, she was great.
That was excellent because it was a before and after. And I know they can't all be like that, but it was a wonderful conversation, and that kind of went, oh yeah, that's great. And then I'll do this before we get into everything else. But the next one I listened to, actually, I've been reading Merch Table Blues.
Oh, there you go.
You've sold one book on your podcast for
there you go. I'm sure Mr. Connors will be happy with that.
It's really good so far. I'm about 3/4 of the way through it, so
that's cool.
highly recommend it.
That's awesome. Yeah, see, things like this work, man.
This is just to show that, give you a little juice to keep going.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for that. And whenever you did reach out, I always like talking to people, obviously, that have been doing this, and by this I mean the Phish thing, longer than I have, because there is such a history to it that I'm fascinated with and am so envious of, that why couldn't I be, in my 20s in the 90s, and like experience all this. So you actually have sent over, should we call it an essay? Is that
I think I called it a self-indulgent essay. It's more from my memory, and it's just a long kind of personal essay about how I was introduced to the band and the first trip I took to go see a show. And I did that for myself a while back, just because, the mind's starting to go later on in life, and it'll be fun to look back on it and remember.
Yes, because unfortunately we don't know what's in store for all of our brains,
right,
in the future. And so that is nice to document everything. That's why I do.
And there wasn't, we didn't have camera phones and everything back then. So I don't have a picture of everything. And that's
you have
one
a
of the
picture
from back then.
I
do have a picture, but we'll get into that later.
So here's the thing. I like to start cold with these because, like I said, I want to get to know you I want to get to know you the same time that whoever's listening to this is getting to know you. And you sent over the essay, and I told myself, I'm not going to read it. I'm going to hear it from him. But this morning, I caved. I woke up, my alarm went off, and as I was laying in bed, checking emails, doing whatever I'm doing, I was like, I'm just going to read it. So I read the essay, and it's really, it's good. I felt like I was reading like a intro to like a book or something, you have a really good way with words. And it took me about 30 minutes to read. So I don't know if that means I'm a slow reader or if that means that
Yeah.
that's actually how
No,
long
it's. I think I looked. It's like 2,500 words. I looked at the word count because I
Okay,
went back
gotcha.
and stared at it just to try and remember a little bit. But yeah, so it was, and like I said, it was self-indulgent
Yeah,
and just
no,
trying to remember how I got to where we were.
and you
So
painted
good fun.
it was a good story. I mean, you painted the picture great. And if you don't mind, I will put that in. Are you cool with me
Yeah, no,
sharing
that's
that in
fine.
the quote
Yeah,
unquote show notes?
feel free.
Okay, cool. Okay, yeah, because you did a really good job and you really were very descriptive. I felt like I got to experience that trip with you. So usually the first two questions that I ask are what got you hooked on Phish and when and where was your first show? So this essay basically answers
Right.
those two questions. So let's get into that if you don't
Yeah.
mind. Like you don't have to read it word for word or
Oh,
even
I'm not
read it
gonna.
at
No, no,
all.
I'm not, I don't
Yeah.
have it anywhere near me right now. This is
Yeah.
just conversation.
Yeah. Just go from, walk us through your first show was.
My first show was The Great Went up
Exactly.
in Maine, but the first part of that, I think one of the first questions you usually ask is, how did you get into Phish? And
Yep.
the first part of that goes into, I had several false starts with the band.
Right.
I had several people who recommended me, oh, you've got to hear the band. My cousin said, oh, here, this is Phish, this is great. And she put on Junta, and Fee starts off, and I'm listening to it, and it's 1993 or so, and so I'm in college, and it's everything's grunge and everything's all that, and I'm thinking, what is this? Why why is this so great?
Yeah.
And I kind of just went, dude, it didn't happen. And at that same year, I had a resident on my floor in college who, he knew I listened to a lot of different stuff, and he said, here, listen to this, and he handed me a copy of A Picture of Nectar. And he said, these guys are great. And I started it, and Llama pops on, and okay, this is a little quirky, but whatever. And then it kind of dips into Eliza, and you think, but this is kind of a whiplash of stuff, and it sounded kooky, and I wasn't there yet.
Yeah.
And 2 years later, somebody else on campus knew I had a campus radio show, so I'd throw all kinds of stuff
I did
on.
too.
Yeah, ours didn't even go out over the air. It went over the cable on campus. And so we'll get to the guy who helped me get into that, but somebody handed me a copy of Hoist and said, you need to listen to Phish. And I went, really? Again with the Phish?
Why does this band keep popping up?
And so I put Julius on, and I was like, oh, this is all right. And so it sounded, it's got that kind of boogie beat in the background of it, a little kind of classic Rocky almost in a way.
Yeah.
And or not Julius. Yeah, Julius does.
Mm-hmm.
And then Down with Disease. And I was like, I can handle that. This is pretty good. And I remember making a copy of that and listening to it quite a bit. Wasn't my favorite thing in the world, but okay.
We're getting
And then
somewhere. It's
we're
not
getting
like
somewhere.
What is that?
We're finally going, okay, I recognize the band. And then I graduate college, bounce around for a while, and end up near in the Chicago area with a job. And a few months after taking this job, a friend of mine, Andy, he's the guy who helped me get into the radio stuff at school. He lives out in New York.
And where did you go to school? Well,
I went to school in Peoria,
gotcha.
at Bradley University.
Cool.
Right. So shout out to Bradley there. But my buddy Andy, he lives in Rochester. He said, hey, you should come. You want to go see this band Phish? He had seen them a couple of times after he had graduated. And so I said, oh, what the heck? Sure, I'll come see them. Where are they playing? And he said, well, they're playing in Maine.
Like, oh,
really? Okay, why not? Let's go. And so I had only been at this job for like a few months, and I took time off, which to me now sounds crazy. Like, how did they not just can me? But anyway, so I picked up another old friend of ours. Yeah, totally. Picked up an old friend of ours, Bill, and we traveled to Rochester. And I'm thinking, okay, it's just Maine. You just got to get across Massachusetts and a little, but
right.
It was so far away. You go all the way across I-90, and then you go up I-5 until it ends, at the border, and then you get off at the last exit, and then you go north for another 200 miles or whatever it was. And I couldn't believe what we were doing.
You're like, wait, all these states are supposed to be little.
Yeah. Maine is really tall. But anyway, so my first show was 1,500 miles away for a band that I kind of had a middling interest in.
That you knew 4 songs of.
So yeah, that's how I ended up at the Great Wind with a couple of buddies who it was a great time. I mean, if you're going to start off with a show, you start off with something that
Yeah.
at that end, and don't think I appreciated it like I should have at that point.
That's
But now looking back on it, going, oh, I was actually, I knew what was happening the second night though, when
yeah.
the second set hit. That truly was one of those magical moments in life where everything just went, oh my gosh, this
It's the
is,
and you
yeah.
saying that, like, I got goosebumps just now because I'm feeling that, like, because if you've seen Phish enough, and kind of taken that similar path of like, oh, it's cool, like, this is a fun, like, environment. There's a band playing, yeah, but I'm not really into it. And whenever that hits, like, whenever
Mhm.
you witness that magical moment, it's like,
Right.
oh, it's like taking. I don't want to promote drug use, but it's like taking drugs for the first time where you're like, oh,
Right.
my mind is open now. But that's kind of one of the things that I wanted to touch on, because as all this is in your essay, which will be in the show notes, I was reading it, and the first thing that popped in my head, like once you got to the Great Went and you were talking about the bathtub gin, I
Right.
was like, oh my gosh. And even in your essay, you said, even in this moment, I wasn't familiar with the song, but I knew once it got going that
Something was happening.
something special was happening. And I
Right.
was like, oh my God. And so I hadn't listened to that in so long, but I remembered, I was like, dude, this is so, I'll call it like a bliss jam because it feels blissy, like
It very much so.
yeah. And so I put it on as I was making my coffee, because I've recently kind of gotten my girlfriend into Phish, and she can
Yeah.
she'll know songs now, and she's like singing along, with some words and stuff. And I was putting it on this morning, and she was like, "What's this one?" And I was like, "Oh, this is like a really like well known, like really great high tier bathtub gin." And she was listening to it, and I was like, "Did you like it?" She was like, "Yeah." And I'm always like wanting that. I think that's why I started this podcast, because I like to nerd out a little bit more,
Right.
like
Right.
talk about it. But getting back to my main point, my thought whenever I was reading that, I was like, oh no, like it was wasted because you weren't like a die hard, like going to like, oh my God, this is like the best gin ever. But then my thought process shifted, and I was like, no, what a perfect way to show on your first show, and someone like
Right.
you had mentioned hadn't really grasped onto Phish as a whole. What a perfect way to do that, because a core memory like that's, you were there, that was your first time. That's so cool, man.
I have a ragged picture of it from where we were. We were a little off to the page side on it. We couldn't really see the whole stage very well. We were pretty close, but it's just an old, grainy photo. But I actually have a photo, and you kind of off to the side, you can see the piece of artwork next to Fishman's drum set. I'll see if I can find that. But yeah,
That's
it
cool.
was just one of those. It was a magical time. And then that whole set. It's not just the bathtub gin. It's still
Right.
one of the best Down with Diseases. And the 2001, and the Harry Hood was just like religion,
Yeah.
washing over with them just cutting the lights. And I'd never
The
been, and the glow stick war was insane. um but I'll tell people that yeah, the second set is one of the pinnacles of anybody, of the career. The third set is like it's a come down, but it's in a good way. It's almost like a landing
yeah.
off of this thing. And I remember hearing them play Dirt for the first time, and the whistling, and it's just kind of that, it's got the thing. And I don't know if I had tears in my eyes or not, but that's what the one song that like stuck with me, that I actually whistled in my head for a long time until I was able to actually see them again.
Yeah.
So that's strange that would be the one, like, oh, you were there for the bathtub gin and all that. And I'm like, yeah, but the Dirt really hit me hard in the third set. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's funny to see what the things that
You
really
actually
capture people.
you actually come away with. Yeah.
Right.
And I can see that. I mean, and first off, there's no shame in crying at Phish shows. I've cried
I,
at I've cried
I
at
might have been
plenty.
exhausted too. So
Just overwhelmed in general.
mhm,
But man, I love Dirt. It's one of those, if it's placed right, like
mhm,
within the set, uh, I love the song, and it can get, depending on where you're at in life, or just even your headspace in that moment, I can see that being an emotional song, so I can see that sticking
Yeah,
with you.
it was
And
fun.
it's easier to It's easier to whistle dirt than it is to the jam of bathtub gin. You know,
Right.
like, of course that's going to be stuck in your head more than
Yeah,
that.
you can go ahead and whistle like Rhapsody in Blue, and then you kind of got bathtub gin anyway. So
Good point. Good
yeah,
point. But yeah, no, that's amazing. And one of the things that made me laugh about the about reading your essay and I swear, this morning, not that I was trying to know you more than I need to, but I have a few Phish books. Like I have
right.
the Phish Companion. I have the one that
I
came
have a
out like,
bunch of them too.
yeah,
Yeah,
and so I was like, I don't know if I have this one. So I like pulled out the book and I'm like looking through to see if I can find the picture. To show.
it's just it's the official one. It's the Phish book is the
Yeah,
one the band put out.
yeah. And so you were at, if you're not familiar with uh limestone, or not limestone, the Great Went,
Yeah,
um there was a photo shoot, and if you've seen Bittersweet Motel, there's some footage of the photo shoot that took place where everyone was naked.
yeah,
Everyone was naked,
unnatural.
and
Yeah.
you were in that, right?
Yeah, that's a funny story. That the two guys that I were with are probably considered a little bit more outgoing or a little bit more free spirited than me, and I think I'm the one that told them. I said we're gonna get in that photo shoot when somebody mentioned it, and there was a flyer somewhere about it, and I think they looked at me both and they said, oh, there's no way he's not gonna do that. And I said, yeah, we're doing it. So the next morning it came up, and they followed me over, and we got into the photo shoot, and it was like 1,100 people
Right.
just laying down on this old runway, and
It's not even
I
grass.
no, but it wasn't bad at all. It was just one of those, we went out and we did it. But the thing is, they were going to send the photo out to
Mhm.
everybody who participated, and at that point I was bouncing around between places that I lived,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
I never received it, but my friend Andy did, and he actually has it framed at his house, and it's very, kind of artsy looking, black and white metallic looking photo, and it's it always looks like a bunch of just corpses to me.
Yeah. No,
So it's a little strange.
I can see that. Like, if you don't know what it is and you
Right.
just like see that hanging up in somebody's house, you'd be like, "What is this, dude?"
It completely belies the whole atmosphere. It was very joyous kind of
Yeah.
thing. And
Yeah.
so a year later, Phish puts out this book that kind of chronicles when they made Billy Breathes, I think, when they
Mhm.
were Bearsville, and they kind of do that. And in there's a section there are photos from the Great Went, and there's a lot of photos of it. It's that one of those is a great photo from behind where they're doing the a cappella Carolina on the second day. You can see the whole crowd. It's a great shot.
Yeah.
But then there are two photos from this Spencer Tunick photo shoot. There's a color one where everybody's sitting down going, hey, and then there's a
Yeah.
black and white one where I think it looks like people are returning from the photo shoot, and there's kind
Uh-huh.
of a woman in the foreground kind of leaping, and in the background I'm one of the people in the background. So mom and dad, if you ever listen to this, I've been published.
That's so funny.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's just one of those little funny flexes, like I'm in that book. Well,
yeah.
you really don't. It was cold that morning, so that's
It's
tell
like,
her.
are you a Seinfeld fan?
Yeah, shrinkage,
Yeah. It's
definitely.
like where George is like changing and he's like, I was in the pool. I was in the pool.
It was chilly. We were pretty far north, so
Yeah. No, I could see
that
that.
was
So
fun.
my question about this is, did you just buy the book and are flipping through and see it, or did
Hmm.
someone say like, "Hey, like
No,
you're in this"?
I no, I think I ordered the book because I knew it was coming out, and
Mhm.
I tried to get it signed. Was living in Chicago in that point in time in late '98 when it came out, and the band actually was at a Borders Books doing a book signing of it during their
Oh,
3-night UIC run, and I didn't get in line early
oh.
enough, or else I would have had them sign that page. And
Hey, this
so
is me, man.
otherwise, yeah, I think that would have been pretty funny.
Oh, yeah,
But
yeah. That's one. And from what we were saying, like with the original photo being framed, like for you personally, like You could get that one framed, like if you were to get like a copy
Yeah,
of
I
it.
don't think that needs to be. It doesn't need to be framed.
Doesn't
It's good hiding on the bookshelf.
That's still, I mean, as personal and intimate as that is, it's still really cool. I mean,
That's just one of those little funny things that happens. Kind of a
yeah,
claim to fame
yeah.
out
So,
of all the stories, and there are millions of stories. So
at least you can say you're published in the Phish book.
right.
So if anybody wants to see a little bit more of Tim, he's
I
on
think
page
I actually have
200.
I have a couple of reviews in one of the other books, like the Farmer's Almanac 6, maybe. I wrote some show reviews in there, but
Oh, very cool.
those aren't as nobody cares about those.
Oh, that's so cool though, man.
Yeah.
I mean, why not? Um, so now that we kind of know your story,
Too much about me, right?
know more about you than any other guest. Now that we know your story of how you got into Phish, your first show, that whole trip. Fast forward to today, you've spent time with obviously 1.0, 2.0, 3.0 Phish. Do you have a favorite year of Phish that you keep going back to? Like you're going to turn something on, you're like, man, I always seem to go back to 95 or
Right.
2018. Do you have a favorite year?
Yeah, I was thinking about this one, and the 2 years that I saw the most shows were 98 and 99, and they're
Oh,
just chock full of stuff. But I'm gonna go with a weird one. I'm gonna say 2019,
okay.
because it would just seem like they'd gotten into this different phase of the band, and they were so good. I think I just saw 3 shows that year, but everything else that I've heard from 2019 is fantastic, and I think part of the root of that goes to the fact that between Halloween of 2018 and when I saw them, they did Casbot Vaxxed, traded Ghost of the Forest, and they had basically already done, and I'm guessing that was near completion because they played everything. They had done everything from Sigma Oasis. And any band 35 years into their run that can do 3 completely different albums within that short time span, it just floors me. And I always think of it this way: is Phish's catalog is so good that if you went to a show and they only did songs that from say Fuego until now, and you wouldn't be dissatisfied. You could, I mean, I wouldn't.
Sure.
They could put together a whole show and not have anything from the first 30, years, and you go, what a great show that was.
Sure.
And I think 2019 speaks to that, and I'm guessing it's going to continue. So
yeah.
I can throw that out there.
So to that point, you made an interesting point because I had never thought of it that way. If I went to a show and everything that they played was only from 09 forward, right?
Right.
From Joy, Fuego, like you mentioned, Big Boat. I'm sure that I would miss like my Disease and like my Tweezer and my Yim and like those heavy hitters, that everybody like wants to hear. But they've done a really good job of creating those new jam vehicles with some of their new, like a light. Like you hear a light now, you're like, oh, there's a really good chance that they're going to jam this,
Yeah.
or even more recently, like the and I get all of these new songs mixed up.
That's all right.
Like the right, or do they jam Rise Come Together, or
yeah, a little bit.
It's
I always think it's just kind of a late second set. Everybody kind of, put your lighters up a little bit.
yeah, one of those type things. But yeah, either way, I can't name a bunch of them. But to the point, they've created these new jam vehicles to where,
well, you just go with things like Steam, or you go with things like No
Sure.
Men in No Man's Land,
That's a
or
good one. Yes.
there are tons of them that are out there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mercury,
Yeah, exactly.
I don't even want to talk about Ruby Waves because
I
I
was
can
just
hear
about to say
I can be here all day talking about the one at Alpine Valley, because I know you're going to ask about jams, and that one's just almost too on the nose, because that
You
thing
were there,
felt like,
right?
yeah, that felt like the whole place was just levitating. And
Yeah.
another situation where Andy and I were looking at each other to saying, we're seeing something special, and it was one of those things where the whole place kind of was going, whoa, what are they doing?
Yeah.
And yeah, it was great.
I wasn't even there, but like I get goosebumps so many times during these episodes because that's why I love talking about like the band and the music, because not even being there, just sitting here in my office, like you get that same rush,
Right.
that same feeling, and it's just it's undescribable. I mean, and you've named two iconic jams that you've seen, one in 3.0, one in 1.0. I mean, are there any other ones like through you said your main years were 98 and 99.
Right. But
Like,
I've seen them throughout. I mean, I've only had
sure,
a couple of patches where I didn't really go to shows. Like after 2009, I saw one. 2012, I saw one. But then 2015 is when I kind of started picking things back up
getting
again.
back. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been thinking about this one too, about the jams. And I'm going to take two of them. One of them that I wasn't at, that I love to tell people, just go listen to the Coral Sky Cross-Eyed and Painless from 96. The
The
second
what?
time, Coral Sky
Oh yeah,
Amphitheater, the
Coral
one in
Sky.
Floyd. Yeah.
Yes.
That one with Carl Perazzo, the extra
Yes.
percussion on it.
Yeah.
Even the intro to it where Trey's saying, "Hey, we're going to play this. Do you remember it?" And he's playing the riff for him before they start. It's this
Yeah.
one. It's this one. And then it's just like a rocket ship.
Dude,
And that's one that I will listen to all the time.
I love it. And I don't
Yeah.
know if you're a runner or do anything like that, but that's one that was on I have a running playlist of jams that,
Okay.
that are fun to run to. And that one will get you in
Down the
gear.
road.
Yeah, it'll get you down the road. And I remember, speaking of Coral Sky, one of my buddies, I was kind of like you, you said you were moving around a lot and everything.
Right.
We hopped around, but there was like a core group of us, sometimes it would be all of us, sometimes it'd be a couple of us living. We were all kind of like living in the same spots. And one of my buddies, I can't remember who it was, had the Coral Sky DVD, and it kind of made
Right.
its way with this, all throughout those moves and everything. And it was one of those, it was a staple. Like it was just always
Yeah.
on, Friday, Saturday night, house parties going on. And it's just the soundtrack is the Squirrel Sky.
Squirrel Sky. It could
Coral
be in the animal
Sky
show.
DVD.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, that one's awesome, man. I love it.
And then one I was thinking about, one that I've actually was at that doesn't get as much recognition as it should, but it's available on the live Phish from the Halloween '98. It's not from Halloween night. The fourth disc in that one is actually from the 30th. It's Las
Oh.
Vegas, October of '98. They played my favorite version of Run Like an Antelope.
Okay.
It's just an amazingly great, like 12 minutes of just straight ahead Antelope jam, and then it drops out, and the whole dropout section, it takes them like a minute to get to the Rye Rocco section, and it's like really spacey, and Trey starts doing loops in it, and it's just kind of going back and forth, and it takes a whole nother minute for him to get to the Marco. And it's almost like he's in a pool playing Marco Polo. He's like, Marco.
That's cool.
It's echoing everywhere. And then it takes a whole nother minute to get to the next part, because I would recommend everybody to go listen to it's 10:30:98 Antelope.
Cool.
Yeah, it's not like crazy, inventive, but the final section of it is just something that they didn't rush through. And it's just like, oh yeah, and it makes you just feel so good.
And that's one of those things about the band is, anyone that's well versed in them and seen them a lot, you can tell when they're being patient, and you can tell when they're rushing.
Exactly.
I.e. the ripcord.
Yeah.
And the patience, like you could, I don't even know how to describe this, but like if you get a quote unquote patience show, if you're following me here, to where everything they're taking their time
and they're listening, and
yes,
yeah,
those are the ones. And it doesn't have to be like, oh my God, there's so many like type 2 jams and everything was like super perfect. As long as they're listening and being patient and not rushing things, those are some of the best, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna steal one more for you too, because
go for it.
I'm wearing this is a from Farm Aid '98.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, just see it, besides it being a really great little set that they did with, had like Runaway Jim and Birds of a Feather, and it had I can't remember what else they played in there, but this is the one where Neil Young came out and played Down by the River with them.
That's
which
so cool.
Was like, it floored me being there, because the whole place had basically emptied out. It was cold and rainy, and Phish was the last band to go on, and so everybody like came down into the amphitheater and got into the center,
So
and
super close,
which was good, because that place has terrible sound unless you're right in the center. And it was just magical watching Neil Young walk out, and it's like, wait, he's got one of Trey's guitars. It wasn't. It was he had a Languedoc and he playing it,
Wow.
and you could just see the look on Trey's face. His eyes were bigger than usual. Like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, can you believe this? And they were, jammed out for like 20 minutes, and then I just tell people this. It's the one time in my life I ever got mad at Willie Nelson, because Willie Nelson came walking out on the stage like, okay, we got to wrap this up. We got to do the final everybody jam, will the circle be unbroken kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, Willie, don't you know what you're getting in the middle of here?
Dude, and that's so funny because before, I always have to look back. I'll stick with me on this. I always have to look back at previous episodes to see what I've worn because in the episode, because I am one of those people that have like 5 shirts, like 3 hats. Like, so I'm always like wearing the same thing. And so this episode, I didn't look to see what I was wearing in the last episode. And I had a Willie Nelson t-shirt on.
Oh,
And just right before we started recording, I was like, I might have worn this last time. So I took it off and put this one on. But yeah, if I would have had that Willie Nelson
it would have
shirt,
been a great reference. Yeah, good reference.
a great reference. Missed the boat on that one. But
That's
dude,
okay.
that's so
That was fun.
iconic. Like, you've seen so many cool things. Like,
And I don't even have, and I'll tell you this, I don't, like the buddies that I have, like text conversation going back and forth with, I'm like the noob of all these guys. I was the latest to see a show. They've all seen way more shows than me, and I'm sure they've seen just as many iconic ones. But I think I've been lucky living here in the Chicago area. It's easy to get to so many. I counted up how many shows I've actually missed here in this area. It's just, would put me like, I'm only like have only seen like 50 shows, which doesn't seem like a lot anymore when I talk to other people. But when I think about it, it's like, wow, that's 50 shows. That's a lot.
Yeah. And then if you start, it's one of those things, like, as I get older, whenever I was younger and like first getting into the band, it was to me kind of like I was noticing that like your show count was like I've talked about it before. It's like a badge of honor, like a Boy Scout patch, you're like, okay, I hit 25. Okay, I hit 50 or whatever the number is. And then now recently I look back at it and I want to see every show that I can.
Right.
But recently I did a rough estimate of, okay, I'll take my 51 shows. Let's times that by $60. You don't want to do the math.
It adds up. Yeah.
It adds
but
up.
over 25 years, that's only going to see him a couple times of your average. Even that's including the the hiatuses and whatnot. So it doesn't seem that bad in the long term.
Yeah,
so,
in the long term. But yeah, it's just like putting it in perspective of like, wow, I've given the band a lot of money.
Yeah, my friend Steve and I, he brought up the whole badge thing too, and because he's like, oh man, you got to see them in the 90s and everything, and I always say to him, yeah, but you went to see a Rosemont show that I didn't go to that people love, and see, there's always, you can't regret it. You just kind of have to say, you get your badge and you put it on your sash and you move on. Some of them you can keep getting. You can like, oh, I've got an Alpine Valley badge, but sometimes you get a badge that says I was at Halloween this, and it's badges you can't get anymore. It's like that. I love that theory.
Yeah,
and new badges are always being created by the band. So you can get them.
Exactly.
And
it's one of those things to where like a lot of that is like out of your control. For example, whenever we first started, and I said I'm so envious of everyone that got to see 1.0 shows. That's kind of like I never had a chance of getting one of those badges because what am I gonna have my parents drive me to wherever whenever I'm 5 years old,
right?
So, but yeah, it's kind of a fun thing, to be like, oh yeah, I've seen this many shows, or oh, I was at this show, or I saw the Ruby Waves, I saw the Great Went. It's kind of a little fun thing to keep.
Right, but I also think 60,000 other people were there with me too. It's not like I was, it was a shared experience, and
exactly.
I've got several of those. Like I was a Big Cypress. That's just one of those things where you bump into people who were there as well, and it's just like an immediate. Do you remember when Waiting in the Velvet Sea came on, and there's the light starting to come up in the east, and it's like, whoa, it's 2000.
That connection,
that was a wonderful one too.
Man, I can't even imagine. I've had a few people on here that were at Big Cypress, and it's just like, talking about like the the fun question of like, oh, if you had a time machine and you could go back to 3 different spots in the world, like where would you go? It's like, oh, well, I would
That'd be a
want
good one.
to. That would be a good one. It's like
Yeah.
I would like to see the dinosaurs.
Mhm.
I don't know, maybe see whatever else, and it's like, and then Big Cypress, which is crazy because like I was alive during that time, but I think in the millennium, yeah, I was 10. I was 10 whenever that
Yeah, not a
happened.
lot of
So
10-year-olds are running around.
yeah, I'm sure there was at least a few. There's someone out there my
Someone had their
age.
kids
Yeah,
there.
someone
Yeah.
had their kids there. But either way, it's
My
cool.
kids didn't. My kids went to their first show last year.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, they can probably take it or leave it, but they indulged me, and we went and saw the show in Arkansas. So
Oh,
we
cool,
we drove
cool.
all the way down there. It was it was like, we'll go see the first show back,
Yeah.
and we met some other people down there, and nice small venue, and it was a lot of fun.
So how old are your kids?
They're junior and senior in high school. So
Gotcha.
they're high school kids. So it's kind of, I hope it's a little badge of honor, but it's not like they go running back to Phish. It's like with anybody else. If I really want somebody to discover Phish, they kind of have to discover it on their own. I can't really force it on them.
Right.
So,
And
and
that's
that's always been the best.
and that's so before we get segue into that, like
Yeah.
whenever they were growing up, like kids, babies even, are you like slipping Phish songs in and like,
Yeah,
or
but they were never much impressed with it,
got it.
So I when I get in the car, we'll put the Phish radio on, and I can sometimes they'll be like, oh yeah, I think we've heard this one before.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, yeah, but you haven't heard this one before.
Not this version, and you have to like hold yourself
Nah,
back.
I'll put it, but then I learn new things from them about,
Yeah,
okay, let's put on the hit radio station or some other, or like the college radio station or whatever, and then
right.
I need to start learning more because I'm a little stunted these days with new music.
No, it can happen.
Yeah.
And I would be the same way. But I work in radio and I program it's hot AC, but it's basically a
Sure.
pop radio station. And so I've, constantly got my finger on the pulse of like what's happening now, but then also it's like I spend 8 hours a day in the pop world and then I come home and just reblast myself with Phish and
Yeah.
Dead, Ween. But yeah, it's good to have. It's good to be eclectic in your music taste.
Yeah, new perspectives.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're teaching me too. So they're finding new artists and taking me to shows, and so good fun.
So what are some of the new artists, if you can remember off the top of
We're
your head, that they've
we're
taken you
going
to?
well. A few weeks ago, we took my younger daughter for the second time. We went to see Bastille. I don't know.
Cool.
Yeah, they're great to see, and they played it in a place up in Madison, which is it's an easy drive for us.
Nice.
And another one, a little more obscure. Our other daughter, she said, "Hey, I want to go see this guy named Dijon, Dijon, and his stuff's like really kind of challenging. And there, if you want to look him up, he played on Jimmy Fallon's show. Just look up Dijon on Jimmy Fallon, and it's this really cool gig of him and his musicians playing around a table, and it's kind of jammy. And
is it okay?
Yeah, so check him out. I'd recommend
Dijon.
it. So
okay. Yeah,
so,
no, I'll check it out.
Yeah, my kids are showing me the light, which is great.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, like even younger, whenever like I discovered Phish, right?
Right.
I was like, okay, I put on my cool kid shirt, I was like, Phish is on listening to like Phish this, Phish that, Grateful Dead, making it like kind of my identity and like shutting everything out. But as I've grown, I'm like, how goofy is that? Like there's so much, like still
There's
this
a
is my
lot, yeah.
favorite band. Like I'm gonna pick Phish every day of the week. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But like to just like shut out everything else, like there's so much other like good music out there. Like for example, a newer artist, I say newer, that I'm really in love with is Post Malone. Like
Okay, yeah.
Post Malone, I don't know if it's because he's so different, but still has wedged his way into mainstream. Like I don't know what
He
it
gets
is
a lot of
about him.
play, yeah.
Yeah, but he's like one of my favorites, man. Like,
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
They're taking me to see The Weeknd in about 2 weeks. So
Dude,
yeah,
kind
of excited.
I love The Weeknd. I actually
He's fantastic.
I got to see him in Portland and was on the floor. I was working in radio still at the time, so got hooked up and I was blown away.
Yeah.
The Weeknd is
He's the real deal. Yeah.
He is.
I like
really
The
good.
Weeknd. All right, we've kind of got. I've
Yeah, no, it's all
thrown
good.
us off topic.
Hey, we're still talking about music.
Oh, and I'm going to throw one other.
Yeah.
One of the first shows I saw this year back, my wife and I, because this is semi-Phish related. We went and saw Reba McEntire. So and it says Reba big behind the stage. She didn't play the song, but it's all right. She played everything you wanted to hear from Reba McEntire. It was a blast.
You're not going to hear me hate on any country, especially country from the 90s.
Oh, no, she's awesome.
I love her. And I've seen people on lot even like wearing like vintage like Reba
shirts.
But yeah, dude, I love 90s country too.
Yeah.
So is your wife into Phish, or is it still kind of like what it is with your daughters?
Yeah, kind of like with my daughter. She's been to a ton of shows. She came to Big Cypress with me, and her first show was in Chicago in '99. And I always tell her, it's this show that everybody kind of looks at and says, that show wasn't that great, but it was this perfect newbie show. It was like every song that she liked, they played that day. It was like First Tube and Back on the Train and Farmhouse and Bouncing Around the Room, and it was like this great, perfect show. And they ended it with Sun Seals was actually on stage with another guy playing harmonica, playing Funky Bitch at the end. So yeah, her first show actually had a special guest. And so
that's
the next night I had a ticket to see them in Normal, Illinois at Illinois State. And she came along for that too. So she saw 2 shows in a row. And,
that's awesome.
Yeah. So she came along for the ride. She must have liked me. And so
that's
and a few months later, she flew down to meet me in Tampa, and we drove to Big Cypress. So
that's awesome.
Big fun.
And it's always fun whenever, your partner or like your kids even will indulge you on that. That's kind of where I'm at with my girlfriend now. Before she met me, I mean, she might have heard of Phish, but never was like seeking it out or turning it on. And, after we've been together for a while, like I said, she is picking up on some of the songs. She knows what's called what. She enjoys or can respect, the jams.
Right.
And her first shows, I took her to Deer Creek in 21. And we went down for the 3 nights. She did great. Got to see the Simple. I was trying to explain to her.
Those are my last 3 shows. Yeah, those are fantastic.
I was like, for your first shows, I was like, you just got something really cool. Like one of those badges of honor. Like you can always say, like, I saw this 21 Deer Creek Simple. And then we're going to I'm in Michigan, so we're going to Pine Knob in August. So that'll be her 4th show. And she's a sport. She has fun with it. She gets it. Still trying to sell her on the shakedown scene because it can get pretty wild or whatever, but for the most part, the music, the band, she digs it. So
yeah,
it's always fun. Yeah. We already kind of covered, what would you play for someone that has never heard Phish? You kind of have to let them, you can't force it. You kind of have to let them come to it.
Though my answer for that is always, if you want a studio, I'd say Rift, but the first thing I would hand them if you want to show them what live Phish is give them a copy of Slip, Stitch, and Pass.
Yes.
Because it's like tailor-made to show you everything the band does in one, like it's not an actual set. It really is. It's from the same show, but it was all put together to sound like one set.
Yep.
And it's got everything. It's got that Talking Heads cover at the start. It's got your funky Wolfman's into a bluesy ZZ Top cover, and it's got a quirky mic tune with Mound, or not Mound, Way. And then,
yes.
Yeah, and it's got the Mike's groove that's got that fun little like lounge lizardy lawn boy in the middle of it, and them goofing around with Doors lyrics and stuff in the middle of it, and got the rolling I could go on. It's just one of those things where it's like, this is it distilled. There's an acapella thing in there. You even get the tapers going shh throughout the whole thing.
I love that.
And it ends with that version of Taste that I think is the best version of the song ever. It's so razor sharp. It's like that's when they knew exactly how to play it and exactly how to end it. And it's just sparkles. I love that. That's exactly what I would hand to anybody and say, this is what it is in a nutshell.
And you know what? I like that answer so much, Tim. I'm going to retire that question from this podcast. No, because seriously, whenever I'm coming up with like these questions and stuff, I'll be like, is that a good question? Is that not a good question? And for the most part, and no disrespect to any of the other answers that I've gotten on here because they're all great. But most of the time when I ask that question, it's like, well, it depends on what the person's into. There's too many factors. But
Right.
with the answer that you just gave, it's that I've never really thought about it
I've
with
thought about it too much. Way
maybe
too
you
much.
should be doing this podcast.
No, these are the things that go through my head when I'm trying to kill time.
But I really feel like that is the perfect answer.
Yeah.
Slip, stitch, and pass is a perfect. It's like it was made for that.
You don't. Yeah, you can't. If you hand somebody a live one, it's just too expansive. It's
Yeah,
there's
it could be. Yeah,
yeah. It's hard for somebody to try and get into that tweezer. It's hard for me to listen to that 30 minutes worth of tweezer. That kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. But that's a great answer, and I love that. I feel like it's perfect. Flip side, we all love Phish. We all know we love Phish. We gotta have every great story has conflict. You have to have conflict.
Right.
What is a Phish song or songs that you would be okay with never hearing again?
Yeah, and this one I've already heard on your program, so I'm gonna skip past it because I know it's controversial for you. I could totally go without Character Zero ever again.
Oh wow, we had someone else say Character Zero.
Yeah. But that one is just like, okay, it's always a set ender, and it's kind of like I've heard this one, I've seen him do it before, and gets a little
Sure.
out there. But my actual answer is going to be something more obscure. It's
Okay.
I don't ever want to hear them play Access Me again. I do not like that song.
What is
I
it
do not
about
like
it?
it on a boat. I do not like it. First, I've only seen it twice. They opened an Alpine show with it in 2004, and I didn't like it then when it first
Uh-huh.
came out. And then in 2012, the only show I saw within like a 6-year span, I was at Alpine by myself, and second set, I think it was second set, they started playing "Song I Heard the Ocean Sing," which I had wanted to hear. I've been wanting to hear this whole time, and I thought,
Mhm.
and it's one I think they should jam out more than they ever do. And
It's a great song.
they're gonna jam this out. And about 5 minutes into it, they just ripcorded it and started playing "Access Me." And I wanted to just run out of the place. I was so mad. I do not like the song. It's a corny Mike song. That's and he's got a whole host of songs that I'm like, okay, this is a quirky, but that one just doesn't. It rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah, especially with it being rip-corded in the song that you've been
Mhm.
chasing, it's like it's gonna leave a bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, this is beside the point. I haven't heard it called Access Me in so long because for whatever reason, and I even forget the inside joke, but my friends and I have always called it Access Jeans. And I can't remember the punchline. We were probably on lot doing something and somebody made like a funny pun or joke or something. And we've always just called it Access Jeans ever
Right.
since then. So hearing you say Access Me, I was like, do you mean Access Jeans? And I was like, oh, wait,
They
it's
have a
really the
real
name of the
title.
song. Yeah. So like I said, beside the point.
Yeah. So I'm not chasing that one anymore. It's already caught me and accessed me, and I'm
Accessed you.
yeah.
You got your jeans accessed, man. Okay, so perfect segue. The song that you were chasing, song I heard at Ocean, a song I
Yeah,
heard
I think that
Ocean
I might
sing.
have actually already heard it once before that, but there was one that I've been wanting them to hear jam out. The song that I'm chasing
Yeah.
is two. There's probably two of them, but one of them that gets played that I never ever have seen. I've never seen them play. It's Ice.
Oh,
It always ends up being like two shows before or one show after
yeah.
I've caught them, and it's like why don't they ever play It's Ice when I'm there? And they
Yeah.
just and so that one, I'd like to see them do it and do a good version of it, which
Yeah.
is getting harder and harder. The
Be
other,
patient with it.
yeah, the other one, another riff song, a Mike song, and they don't play it. I would love to see them play Mound, which I don't know if they even have it in the repertoire anymore.
It's been a
It
while, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's one
Yeah.
of those that just kinda goes away and then maybe makes an appearance once in a great while,
Yeah, that's
but
one that I feel like should be in better rotation.
I
I
think
like that
it's
song.
a difficult one to play
I'm
too,
sure. Yeah.
so
So
but
probably a good
those are the 2 that I'm kinda chasing around, but you
those
never
are
know.
two good ones
They
to
might pop
chase.
up, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Might
and
get them this spring.
I have one more that if you ever follow me on Twitter, I'll always reference this song. I love the Sick It disc,
Yeah.
the stuff and I've
I've always
everything they've
called it the Psychic disc. Is it Sickit?
yeah, it's the guy's name is John I think it's Sickett, isn't it?
Okay.
I
I've
could
just
be
been
wrong. I may be
mispronouncing
saying it
it.
wrong. But he was the engineer on that.
Hmm.
And I've seen him do all the songs. I've seen My Left Toe. I've seen What's the Use of several times. It caught the quadraphonic toppling at Big
That's cool.
Cypress, which
Yeah.
But there's several tracks on there that I think they could like slip into jams if they had to. There's one called "The Name Is Slick." That's the title of the
I'm
song is
not
the name.
familiar.
The Name Is Slick, and it's almost like this 2-minute interstitial, but that they could segue from one thing to another with, and they never have. They've never played it, and so
And
that's almost like a joke for me now. Is play "The Name Is Slick." Play
is
"The Name Is
it
Slick."
is it instrumental or does it have
Yeah,
words?
no, it's instrumental.
Gotcha. So they could do
Yeah,
it without even people
yeah,
knowing and just think it's
right.
part of the jam.
They could, and I would somebody would pick up on it somewhere,
Yeah.
but probably pick on it before I ever did. But that's just kind of my running joke is
You would
play
be the
this song.
one
I'm chasing it.
chasing this song they've never played.
Yeah.
That's funny, man.
Well, I just think that at the Baker's Dozen they played "End of Session," which is the last
Yes,
song on "Story of the Ghost." I'm like they could go back and do something like that.
they
Pull
could.
something out of the fire.
And they're always looking, they're always doing stuff like so it's not out of the realm of
Nothing is.
being impossible. Before we get into some more of your memories from tour and everything, this just popped in my head because this is something that's recently happened. And I know that you've seen it. Last episode, or not last episode, one of the previous episodes, the band Goose got brought up.
Huh?
And I was saying that, I haven't really dove into them yet. I'm aware of them, but I couldn't hear a song and tell you, oh, that's this song.
Right.
And we all know that recently Trey has done a set-in with Goose and then also did a set-in
Billy
with
Strings.
Billy Strings, which
Yeah.
I thought was phenomenal because I'm a Billy Strings fan. You have any takes on this? You think Trey's, because
No, go
you're
ahead
on
and
Twitter.
play.
Yeah, go ahead
Play.
and play.
You know what? If you got a guitar and they want you to come on and play, play. What's wrong with that?
Exactly. So
Trey is one of the he's everywhere, and he's almost like an unstoppable force of creation.
yeah,
Not of creation in general, but like
no,
he's a creator,
exactly.
and constantly wants to be creating and finding new people to create with, and so I love that about him.
It's fun, right?
It's a ton of fun when he does it, and I think it's a ton of fun for the bands that he does it with.
Can
I
you
think that
imagine?
yeah, I think they like that. So I don't know why anybody would want
Yeah,
to slag on that.
but with you being on a part of, quote unquote Phish Twitter, I'm sure that you
A
see
little,
all of these.
yeah. And actually, I don't. I mean, I don't really know a lot of stuff by like Goose or I know some Billy String stuff, but it's
Mhm.
not something I don't want to listen to that as much as
Not
other
your
stuff. But
bag.
no, it's okay.
Yeah,
But I'm not gaga over it. But
sure.
I totally appreciate that other people like listening to them, and I love
Yeah,
when people when people come in and sit in with bands and add that little extra element or push people a little bit to
it's fun.
say, here's what I can do. Can you either keep up or can I keep up with you still at this point? You
Exactly.
young guns or whatever you want to.
Yeah.
So I love that. Everybody should do that, and bands do that all the time.
Yeah. I mean, like you just mentioned, like Sun Seals
Or
came out,
the,
or they've
the
played with Neil Young. Like,
yeah,
yeah,
Del McCoury. I've seen him play with Del McCoury band. That was like Sun Seals came out and played with him again at Camp Oswego in '99. That the hottest festival. Oh my gosh, it was. People were just melting all
oh
over
yeah,
that place. But that was a great one too. But yeah, it's fun to see them play with other artists,
yeah,
and it's great to see Mike play with Leo Kottke,
yeah.
or
They do some
or
great stuff.
yeah,
Yeah,
fantastic. Kaki's such a different guitar player than
yeah.
Trey,
Very different.
or even listening to I don't know a whole lot of Mike's solo stuff, but he played they on the Phish radio. I think they played some stuff from his solo tour where he plays oh, what's the song? Destiny Unbound,
Hmm.
and it's such a different sound than it is with Phish, but it sounds great because he's got different people interpreting it,
Yeah,
and it's great. I don't want to just get locked into where you can't play that because you're not Phish.
yeah. It's
Yeah, you
also like
can.
when Tab plays like Sand or whatever, it's still the same song, but it's got a different feel to
Yeah,
it.
uh, yeah. I saw them in that first tour in '99
Hmm.
with it was just him and Russ and Tony, and the second set of that, the first set's just Trey playing acoustic, and the second set was all songs. You know, it was the first time I'd heard First Tube and Gotta Jaboo, and I mean, this is before he ever played them with Phish. And the set was like 2 hours long, and it just kept going, and they just lock in a groove and it was different than Phish because it just let Trey go off.
Yeah.
You know, Tony just sit there, would just
hold it
play
down,
the groove and hold it down for as long as he needed to. And it was different than, right. But it's different than Mike, who he's not there just to sit and hold a groove for you.
Collaborate.
He's there to talk with him. Yeah. So I love that stuff.
Yeah, it's fun. And it's so funny to me seeing like all of the theories, taking it back to Trey sitting in. It's so funny to like see all the theories of like Trey's doing all these set-ins. He's trying to send a message that Phish is done, like all this like off the wall stuff. I'm like, you guys are thinking way too much into this. Like he's a musician and he wants to play music.
Yeah, but like earlier this year, I think it was when they were in Mexico, and he sat in with Dave Matthews before Phish, and everybody's minds melted. And I'm like, you know, they're friends. You do realize these people like each other.
This isn't the first time that this has happened. Like they've played music together before.
And there's a stage and a microphone and somewhere for Trey to plug in his guitar. He's gonna go up there. You know, and he likes Dave Matthews, and they're gonna play. It's
exactly.
Fun.
Dude, people melted down over that. I was like,
why?
Get real, man. Like if one of your old friends from back whenever you were in your 20s and 30s like was in the same spot as you in a different country and you were playing a show, wouldn't you be like, hey, you want to come do a set? Like you'd almost be an asshole not to, right?
Right.
Like,
or unless I don't want to upstage you, but like, but come on, let's go.
Fun.
Mix it up.
Yeah.
So, that's my take on that. I will more sit-ins.
I'm with you. Okay, I always like to wrap these up with some favorite memories from tour, which we've talked about. Your, getting into the band, the Limestone.
You've already got my good stories.
It's great. Any other ones that pop in your head of like, oh, this happened at this show, or on the way to this show we broke down and blah blah blah, or whatever. Anything that pops to your head?
Yeah, I need to think about that. No, I just some quirky things like I did get to see Pork Tornado a couple of times.
That's cool.
They played in Chicago back in like 99, 2000, or somewhere around that age, and they came a couple years in a row, and they came to this old club called a Double Door, which is no longer there. It was a great club and was like within walking distance of our old apartment. So getting to see Fishman up close with a different band
in a bar,
that's cool.
Yeah,
basically in a bar.
Yeah,
and that kind of stuff I love to do. To find them in different elements.
Yeah.
What other? I never had too many crazy experiences. It's mostly just getting to the shows and coming home from the shows. I'm sure I'll think of something later and go, this one time we did.
Yeah, we'll be done recording and you'll be like, oh, I forgot about that.
Well, I think I've gotten into a lot of the stuff already, but just
no, you have, man.
But
side note, like Pork Tornado, what a Fishman name! Like,
oh yeah, I couldn't, and I'll tell you this right now. I have the CD and everything. I couldn't name you one Pork Tornado song. I just I remember he came out in front at one point. Maybe he stayed behind the drums. I'm not sure, but I think he sang Divinal's "I Touch Myself" was what I remember him singing during that show. It is like his quirky Fishman thing, and everybody in the whole place singing along with it, which was a lot of fun too.
That is fun, man.
That was a good time. I know. You know what? And this shows you I've listened to your podcast too much. There's one question you didn't ask that I have a different answer. Who would you like to hang out with?
Oh,
But this is a different one because I don't know if anybody's ever said they just want to sit down and hang out with Paige, because
poor Paige.
No, Fishman would be a blast. Trey, I think I know Trey, and I think I know Mike pretty well. Mike actually, his out, if you follow his Instagram and his other stuff, he kind of lets you know what's going on. Here's what I'm working on. Check out my new bass.
Yep.
But Paige is kind of this mysterious. What does he do when he's not on Phish tour? But he seems like a genuinely nice guy. But he seems like a genuinely private person. So like, just sit down and go, what's life like?
Yeah. I feel like Paige wouldn't, and this is just me speculating, but I feel like he wouldn't really open up, to your point. He feels kind of reclusive. Like, I'm only gonna let
But
you know what I need you to know.
but
You
that's
know?
okay. I can
Mhm.
appreciate that too. So it'd just be nice to maybe sit down, draw him out a little bit, and
Yeah.
find out what's going on. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and you brought that up. That is one of the questions that I took away because it was like a
oh, never
resounding.
mind.
No,
I'm
you're
not.
good. No, you're good. But I was like, look at because I have my
Everybody's
list.
saying Fishman.
I have my list right here, and I remember now because everyone was like, Fishman, 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 Trey. Every once in a while, we get a Trey.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's like if I had a chance to hang out or meet any of them, I'm not gonna be like, oh no, I don't want to hang out with Leo. I'm waiting for Fishman. I'm gonna be like,
Right.
yeah, absolutely. Are there any extended family of the band that I can hang out with just to get
Right.
closer to them? Like,
Right. Yeah.
I would pick any of them. But yeah, poor
Or it might be
Paige.
one of those situations where, like, you know what, don't meet your heroes kind of thing, because it might ruin it. You never know.
Yeah, and that's
I don't
that's
think that would be
gotten
the case, but
yeah, no, that's gotten brought up a lot, and I genuinely and we all could have blinders on, but I genuinely think that with any of the band members, if you were to meet them in wherever, a coffee shop or run into them at dinner and you're one of those people that wants to interrupt their dinner, I don't think that any of them are going to be like, "Hey, fuck off. Like I'm having
yeah,
dinner with my family." They're going to be like, "Hey, thanks man. I appreciate you, vibing with this." As long as you're respectful, I feel like they're
yeah.
going
I
to be
don't. I
respectful.
wouldn't be. I don't think I could do that. I think I'd have to just
I
maybe
know.
give them a nod and say thanks and walk
It
on. I don't want to interrupt their lives.
It would be so hard though. Like I tell myself that I would do the same thing, but like if I were to just be somewhere and I'm like, oh my God, that's fucking Paige McConnell. I don't know what I would do in the moment. I'd
I'd
probably
need to
just
have.
freeze.
I would need to have something new to say to them that they haven't heard a thousand
Yeah.
times before. Besides, your music. Your music changed my life, or this and that and the other. And
Like join the
I know,
club.
right? So, do they really want to hear that again? It's
Yeah.
it's you never know. And you don't want to be the one that messes up their day. Like, that
Yeah.
guy interrupted my dinner. And
Yeah.
it's all right.
Yeah. I
So,
think just the nod. As much as it would pain me, to be like, God, I could have gotten a picture with one of my heroes. Like just
yeah,
appreciate you, man.
right, exactly. I was like,
Or you do something obscure so they do remember you memorize pi and you like just like, hey Paige, 3.14392, whatever. They're like, what? That guy
what?
just
Yeah, what? Oh, I
they
know.
would
I know
remember you
that.
though.
I know. I just thought of something experience wise. Um, and this is not related to actually going to shows. I think I sent you a picture a while back. When we're out like road tripping around, my family will indulge me if we're close enough to certain things. A memory popped up in my social media the other day of 5 years ago. We went to a wedding up in Connecticut, and we were close enough to Rhode Island to say, "Hey, girls, let's go to Rhode Island so you can say you've been there." And I
Hmm.
looked along the beach, and I found the town of Weekapaug to say, "Let's go." It's just so I can get a picture of them in front of something that said Weekapaug.
Yeah.
They indulged me with those little things. And then this past a few months ago, we were in New Jersey, and we were going to go look at Princeton. And I said, "I know it's near Princeton. The rhombus is near
Yes.
Princeton." And they indulged me, and I found it on the map and went there, and we went and took a picture of it, and like, this is where the band, this is part of the band's lore, and
Yes.
all of this, and they're like, why are we visiting this thing? So
You're like, there's
those
so much history here. And
I
funny
love
you
I love those sidelights.
yeah, and you sent that to me on Twitter, and that's actually going to be I've already got it made.
Oh,
That's
they are.
that's the cover photo right there, episode 23.
Right, there
You
we
with the
go.
rhombus. I love
So
that, man. Dude, this is real quick. This summer, are you got any shows on the docket? You gonna be hitting
Alpine.
Alpine
Yeah.
for sure?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
cool.
that's all that's pretty much all I'm gonna be able to do. And my
I
my
hear you.
friends from New York are coming in, and they're gonna, stay here, and it's like I said, it's a quick jaunt straight north and south. It's like an hour away.
Oh, yeah.
So it's pretty easy to get there, and I love going there. It's
Yeah. It's
there's no
fun.
real lot scene, but it's one
No.
that you have to make your own scene, because they don't allow anything there,
Yeah.
that's the one bummer about it.
I
But
know. It could be so cool.
it's that one place where you're on that big flat lot, and then you get to the gate, and it's just like straight down into the venue, and it's so
Yeah.
big. And
Yeah.
I,
If you're
I
on the
love being
lawn,
there.
make sure you're doing your calf raises a week before.
Right, it's super steep and so big.
It
And
is.
but I love going there. I love trying to, if we can get into the pavilion, even better.
Yeah,
But it's just one of those kind of magical venues
it is.
and there are a lot of places I haven't been, but that's when I'm so glad that I'm
So
nearby,
close.
and I'm lucky that they play there. with
Yeah,
regularity when it's open. And if not,
exactly.
Chicago's only, an hour
Yeah,
away the other way. And that I'm really fortunate in that.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So
And those
all
shows
good.
that they were doing at Northerly Island, there was a few years where they're consecutively doing that. Me and my crew, we hit those. So those were,
Yeah.
it's
I
always
saw the ones
fun.
in I got to 2017. The other two I was off on road trips with the family. So I missed the year, like the storm hit. And then
Yeah.
that was when I only saw the last time they played there right before the Baker's dozen.
Yeah.
But
I was at
that's
the
a
Storm one.
cool
It
little
was
one.
bizarre. And
Yeah.
I can't remember if that was the same year that they did that, the wedge that was there. And that might
Yeah.
just be one
I
that's
missed
sticking
that
out to
one.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was like 2013 or 14, one of
Yeah.
those two.
14
I missed
sounds
that.
about right, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are fun, man. Well, I'm not going to be making it to Alpine this year, but now that we know each other in the
Sure.
future,
Look to meet up.
with whatever, tour dates coincide with wherever I'm at and wherever you're at, if we're at the same show, we got to stop and have a drink together or catch a set
Definitely.
together or say what's up, man. Tim,
Sounds
it's been
good.
so much fun.
This
I've
is a
loved
lot of
hearing your
fun.
story. Thanks for hopping on, man. Thanks for reaching out.
Yeah.
And speaking of reaching out, if you want to be on a future episode, shoot me an email at sttf.weareeverywhere@gmail.com, or just shoot me a DM if you're following on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, wherever. I'd love to have you on. Tim, thank you so much. Like I said, hang out, stop the recording, and we'll get some logistics hammered out. Thanks again, man.
Thanks.